All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to CFI After Dark, the Saturday morning edition. I'm the pet man, Matt Morrow, and I'm glad that you are tuning in, whether it's live or on the playback. We are excited to be here once again, and we had a lot of good football happen over the past couple of nights. Because we had some Thursday games because games were moved up due to the rain threat, and then we had Friday games where they were played after the rain kind of came through. Um, so Thursday night we covered Shelby and East Gaston. Excuse me, and that's the game I'll start out talking about. But of course, if you watch CFI After Dark, you know that this is your show. Whatever you decide to comment on is what we'll talk about. And based on all the comments that I received yesterday, I'm sure there'll be a lot of comments. So we'll let the stream kind of get out there. And then Shelby and East Gaston, you know, going into this game, we talked about it on our show, and we felt like it was a game, worth discussing amongst our big games that we talk about. And it spirited or sprouted, I should say, a lot of back and forth conversation between Coach Dub and Big Eye Shelby, to where they decided to on air wager on the game with a meal. Nothing too crazy, but obviously that got the attention of the teams involved in the game. And we when we cover games, we're on the field. We're not in the press box. We get the highlights, we get pictures and all that. And sometimes you have some friendly banter between players and or coaches. And I the funny thing about this is we do this stuff, and when I coached, I never paid attention to any of this stuff. I mean, I remember many years ago when I was coaching at Harding, and one of our coaches, our OC at the time, came in the office and was, ranting about a post that was made on a message board. And, he told me what it said, and I said, Coach, it doesn't matter. They don't know what we have or, anything about our team, So, we just focus on ourselves. And he was like, man, you're right. Yeah, let's just focus on us. But it's 2023, and social media is bigger than it's ever been. And you know, I get it that coaches find ways and players themselves find ways to find motivation. And I've said it for a long time that if what we talk about provides motivation, then more power to you. But you know, we do this because I really got started because I felt like there was a gap there to where we can cover more schools. For many years before I even got started, the best schools were the only ones that got talked about, and I never felt like that was right. That's why I started doing all this stuff many years ago, because I felt like every school from Butler to Garinger should be covered and in between. So we're going to continue to keep doing that. But that being said, Shelby dominated the game. I mean, from the start, it was impressive up front. They came off the football. They ran the football well. Um, East Gaston was able to get some turnovers when they threw the football. I think they got 3 turnovers on the night, 2 interceptions, and maybe it's 3 interceptions. I think it was 3 interceptions. Yeah. So they were able to create chances for themselves, but they couldn't consistently move the ball down the field. And Shelby ended up winning that game, as you can see right here on the scoreboard, 49-13. Um, so another Thursday night action. There were a lot of kind of one-sided games. The big game though, J.M. Robinson defeating Northwest Cabarrus 21-13. And Shay Kwan, who works for us covering games, he sent me a lot of kind of breakdown on that game that I'll share with you guys. And we have pictures, and I'm sure he'll post highlights that we'll reshare on Instagram. That I'll get the pictures out probably today. I got a lot to do today. I won't get into that on here. But let's see here. Robinson scored first, so they led 7-0. He said both defensive lines were really disruptive. It was 14-7, J.M. Robinson leading at the half. He said neither one of the team's run games really got going in the game. J.M. Robinson scored off a screen pass from about 50 yards out. And the second score was on a deep ball that was wide open due to busted coverage by Northwest Cabarrus. Northwest Cabarrus also scored on deep ball that was on busted coverage, and they also that was set up the touchdown. That was a flat pass from about 5 yards out. Yeah, so there's a big thing in that game when they said there were some controversial calls by the referees, or officials, I should say, not referees. It's been a consistent thing all year long, man. But it is what it is. But you got to shout out Jason Seidel, head coach of J.M. Robinson. Congratulations to him picking up a conference championship in his first year at J.M. Robinson. And there's a lot of talent on that team. They've grown together. They kind of helped turn that program around from when, Coach Darius was there the last couple of years. And now they're, seeing the fruits of that labor. So, congratulations to those guys for sure. And then Northwest Cabarrus is not going to be easy out in the playoffs either. I'm intrigued to see where they end up seed wise. Both of those teams. We'll look at next week's schedule before we get out of here, and we'll talk about the implications on that because there's some huge games next week. But to finish up Thursday, we got Burns over Cherryville 58-7. And let's see here. North Oran beating Lexington 21-14. That was an important win for them. North Gaston continuing to play well, 43-10 over Stuart Kramer. That puts them over 500. Shout out to Coach Rothwell, those guys, man. Great job. Hickory big over Fred T. Ford, 61-14. They remain undefeated on the season. Crest was big over Hunter Huss, 49-3. Kings Mountain over Ashford, 24-3, setting up their big Cleveland County showdown that we'll definitely talk about on our show next week. And then on down the line here, South Point pulling it out. Forest V led this game for a long time, but then South Point was able to pull it out in the fourth quarter touchdown, 30-26. So they found a way to win in a tough game there. And then Thomas Jefferson beating Highland Tech 37-14 to finish out Thursday night. Oh, I'm sorry, Statesville 48-10 over St. Stephen's. They are playing Hickory next week in a big game as well. Now, let's go to comments, and I'll switch the ticker over to Friday night, and we'll review those games. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to talk about Friday night, both the person and the matchup. All right, so we got that up. All right, let's go to your comments. We got some in the bucket here. All right. I barely announced it when I was going to start the show. I don't understand how you're able to do this. Yeah, I knew something wasn't right Wednesday. Something wasn't right when I didn't see you. I hope everything's all right. Hope you're all good. All right. Chat administrator, always here. Mooresville 30, A.O. Brown 20, and Lake Norman 24, South Iredale 10. Ugly wins for both, but sets up the hugely anticipated undefeated rivalry showdown next week. Well, there you go. That's another one of those big games. That's going to be next week, and retweeted the graphic on Twitter if you haven't seen it. The game starts at 6:30. If you've ever tried to get to Lake Norman, there's no good time to try to get there. But 6:30 is probably the absolute worst time to try to get in there and get to that school. So if you're going, I think what do you say, Kyle? 4:30 is when you should try to try to leave and get up there in time to get to the game. It's gonna be an incredible mess, but the game should be awesome. Two big time rival schools, and probably I think you said probably the biggest game they've ever played against each other. Um, it's not only for conference championship and bragging rights; it's also for a high seed in the 4A playoffs as well. So, very important game. Um, it's going to be a. I can't wait to see the atmosphere there for sure. All right. Also, chat administrator saying Cox Mill 54, Hickory Ridge 21. Shout out to Coach Billups. Definitely thought that game would be more competitive. Hey, one thing about Cox Mill, if you look at the games that they've played, they've only lost to teams that have either one loss or no losses on the season. I'm going to pull their schedule up and then just kind of go through that specifically. But they they are a team to watch because when you got something like that, you don't know, how good are they? And I mean, I saw them up close, last week against Lake Norman, and I felt like, they were in the game. They just couldn't get, something going offensively consistently, but their defense did play well. Lake Norman was able to set themselves up with good field position on turnovers that they were able to force. So if they're able to play a clean football game, I think, they're a competitive football team. So they lost to Weddington, they lost to Kings Mountain, they lost to Hickory, Mooresville, and Lake Norman. So you combine those records, there's only one, I think, one loss between those guys, and that's Weddington, who lost to Butler earlier this year. So, I mean, when they played those undefeated teams, some of those games got away from them, but I think they're a respectable playoff team, and they got South Iredale at home next week. So if they're able to win that game, they have a very strong RPI due to their strength of schedule, which affects the opponent's winning percentage component of the RPI. So I think they win, and they're going to be in there for sure. All right, let's go. Let's see. Reggie Daniel said, "Yeah, if you missed my early, kind of diatribe, I was talking about, social media and that kind of thing. But whatever works for people, works for people, man. And obviously, it's working for some of these programs out here. But either way, we're going to continue to be who we are at the end of the day. Let's see. Good morning, Jonathan Lorenzo Mitchell. Appreciate you watching, man. Chat administrator says, shout out to Makai Heron. Yeah, he's a talent. He's a talent. I watched this film the other day. He's legit, man. He's got a really, really bright future ahead of him. A 2025 kid. He's got another year. Let's see here. Good morning, Nikisha. Good to see you. Petty Roosevelt, I'm sorry. How about them Chambers Cougars? Yeah. We had a lot of talk, people wanting to wake me up this morning to talk about Chambers. That was a first. I've never gotten called out to wake up and talk about football. So we will talk about Chambers, and let me get, I think their score is on here somewhere. Anyway, we know Chambers won the game 30-14 over West Charlotte last night. And, on our show, we talked about it, and it kind of just came up, out of just general conversation. We were discussing the game, and then Friday Night Fowler, who is a Winston-Salem 336 guy, went out there and said that West Charlotte was just going to win the game. And I said, well, and we didn't put this game in our predictions, so we didn't predict it, but he went out there on his own and said that. So I said, you gotta be careful what you're asking for. And he was very bold and confident. And I said, all right. So obviously that did not happen. And um, the internet detectives found the clip, and we didn't even clip it up or anything, and posted it. And he said that he was wrong, and he's a really good dude. I mean, he's been a great addition to our show. I mean, he believes what he believes, and he puts it out there. But all that aside, you have to shout out Chambers for a great game last night. From what I understand, they led the game 30-0, the vast majority of it, and then they put in the backups, and West Charlotte was able to score then. They're a team that I feel like some people have forgotten about, just because maybe they don't have all of the I don't know. I don't know what you would call it, but you shouldn't forget about them because they have a lot of great talent. I've looked at a lot of their players' film for the Queen City Senior Bowl, and I feel like I say this every year about them. If I could take 10 of their players in the bowl game, I would, but we have a limit of 4 maximum that you can take. So they have a lot of great talent over there. And I really like what both the coordinators are doing, and Coach Facile and Coach Cannon on the defensive side with that team. They are really putting their players in great positions to be successful, and it's bearing out. And you want to be playing your best football at this time of year going into the playoffs. And we've seen what West Charlotte is able to do against most teams. And, to do that, and I think I saw the stat that they had 30 yards of offense before the backups came in. I mean, that's really impressive because that West Charlotte themselves has a lot of great talent, a lot of athletes, and they're able to do some things with the football in their hands. But I mean, they were totally shut down last night. So Chambers has Mallard Creek next week, another traditional, rival game between those schools. But if they're able to win that game, they're going to have a pretty good RPI themselves, and they should have a first round home game for sure. And then we'll see how it bears out from there. But congratulations to Chambers, man. I wanted to make it over there. I appreciate the invite from Coach Hawk, but we got kind of caught up doing some other things, and I didn't go anywhere last night. I only went to we covered Shelby's Gas on Thursday. So next week I'm on the border of deciding whether I cover a game or not. Not sure yet. Right now it looks like I'm not, but we'll see how things go there. All right, Trayvon for Community School Davidson, big over Christ the King, 50-0. Brandon Albert had around 200 plus rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Our defense had 2 interceptions, 1 for a pick 6 by a D line. Oh man, let me know who that is, man. We gotta get him on Petman's players. Yeah, big game against Pine Lake next week. That's gonna be for the number 1 seed out of the conference, and a high seed in the RPI for the conference champion. This team has been impressive all year long, man. Consistently. I think their only loss was to Forest Hills by 1 touchdown. And they're gonna be a force in 2A, come playoff time. And that'll be a big game, man. There's so many big games next week. When you look at the schedule next week, I'll go through it, you're gonna be amazed with how many big games there are, for sure. All right. Let's see. There's Jonathan again. He says, can you explain why Raven Gap is playing in North Carolina? Not sure how it works for boarding schools. They're playing here because Georgia wouldn't take them. I mean, that's the short answer. They try. I mean, I'm sure they want to play in Georgia, but it's sometimes you get in a situation with some of these schools, kind of like the charter school situation. If you've heard of Gray Collegiate in South Carolina, they're kind of dealing with something similar where if the surrounding schools feel like you have an unfair advantage, they'll refuse to play you. And then, the association, state association, whichever state association it is, has a decision to make of accepting your school to play in that association or telling you, well, you're not going to play here and you got to go, play somewhere else. And in that case, you can be like an independent, like college football, you would say Notre Dame, for example. You can play an independent schedule, and there are some schools that aren't affiliated that play independent schedules. Locally, you think about teams like Carolina Bearcats, for example, who take homeschool kids, and they have a team that way. Um, but if a state association won't let you play in it, you got to find somewhere to play. So they reached out, to the North Carolina Independent School Athletic Association, the NCISAA, where Providence Day and Country Day and Charlotte Christian play, and they accepted them. They accepted them into the association. So that's why they play up here in North Carolina. Um, they're a really good team. I mean, we interviewed some of their kids before. They explained, kind of their situation. Like you said, it's a boarding school. They take kids from, all over the place, including international kids. I interviewed their quarterback, I think it was 2 years ago, and he was from Germany. And, he came over here because he was a really good, football player, wanted to get better. And they have relationships, with those, kind of entities that can promote those kids and get them here. And then they have several Division I kids. The young man Horn last night, Trey Horn, scored 5 touchdowns, and I believe he's committed to Georgia Tech, playing a little bit of running back and receiver. They have a quarterback who is highly touted D1 kid with several offers, including one from Charlotte. And Biff Poggi and those guys. So they're really talented, but that's why, they play in North Carolina. All right. More comments. Let's see here. Armani Bird. Oh, our Clover guy. Yep, there he is. They beat Fort Mill 48-0. Wow. 7 wins in a row. And yeah, that's another big game next week. Clover and Rock Hill. It's gonna be packed, and it's gonna be a lot of offense. That's what I think about that one. That's my early thoughts. Yeah, Clover's being real impressive, man. So congratulations. And South Carolina playoffs are gonna be just as crazy, if not crazier than North Carolina for sure, man. Let's see, Eric Walker. Top of the morning, another heartbreaking loss for Metrolina. Led all game, lost in the final minute. Oh man. Who'd y'all lose to? I don't think I saw your score. Yeah, let me know who y'all lost to, because I didn't see it at first glance on the ticker over here. But yeah, I saw the loss to Cannon last week. And that, sometimes you just got to tip your cap. Colin Reese had an incredible play, hooking up with his quarterback Tyler Green to win that one. But Metrolina's been really good this year, man. I think are you guys Division I or Division II playoffs? Let me know, because I always like to talk about both divisions of the NCI SAA playoffs that are coming up as well. So those tough experiences though can help galvanize you when you get to playoff time, and then you learn from them. So. Good stuff right there. All right. Coach Leggett, what's up, man? Marvin Ridge with a big win last night against Sun Valley. Yeah, that was big. Sun Valley's a good team. Yep. I'm glad to see Evan Metters is back. I know, when he was down for a little bit, that hurt you guys, obviously, to have a Shrine Bowl quarterback, that's not there. Any team would struggle. But yeah, Marvin Ridge is a team that you got to watch now. Now that they're full strength, don't let their record deceive you. They missed Metters for a little bit right there. But that team at full strength is a solid 8-9 win team, in my opinion. So a first round matchup with Marvin Ridge is going to be something that bigger seeds or higher seeds don't want to see. That's for sure, because they got a really good running game. And Coach Leggett leading that offensive line is going to make it tough, man. But yeah, Sun Valley, after their undefeated start, they've lost 2 in a row now. They lost to Weddington, and then they lost here to Marvin Ridge. So they got to find a way to pull it together before they get into the playoffs. A little bit of uncharted territory for that team, but we'll see how they handle it. I really believe they're well coached, and they got some really good talent. So good Union County football battle there last night. Jason, it was good to see you. Yeah, that it was a dominant performance by Shelby for sure. And yeah, we put the highlights out. I appreciate you guys sharing the highlights, man. I see a lot of people have watched them and enjoyed them. Um, one of the things with doing that, the highlight stuff, is there's so many people doing that stuff now that here in Charlotte, I think that the people that view it, the numbers have kind of gone down from that perspective. I mean, there are a lot of talented people doing great things, but sometimes when you go outside of the city and you don't have as many people covering the team, that stuff really kind of goes further. And, that's something that we'll consider, kind of going forward here and going into the playoffs. And I appreciate you saying that, man. It was good to meet you. And, obviously your son had a really good game as well. And that's good stuff, man. All right, Damon Allen. Crest with the Crest with the win. Cleveland County dominant county. Yeah, you can't argue that. Cleveland County's definitely been one of the best in the state, if not the best overall. I mean, when you got 4 teams that are well over 500 and both playing for conference championships. I mean, look, you think about that. Burns and Shelby are playing for their conference title, and then Crest and Kings Mountain are playing for their conference title next week. I mean, you can't beat that. You can't beat that at all, man. But Crest is rolling, and it's going to be a heck of a matchup against Kings Mountain for sure next week. Coach Tatum, yeah. Hey, long as you're watching, man. We try to offer YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. You can comment on Facebook and YouTube. So we try to make it to where whoever wants to watch can watch however they want to watch. If you watch on Twitter, you can't comment, but Facebook and YouTube, you can get it out there for sure. So I appreciate you watching, man. All right, so that's all the comments we got right now. We still got a lot of people on. If you want to comment and share something, we'll talk about it. Let's go through last night's scores, and then we'll take a look at next week. So last night, of course, talked about Raven Gap. They beat Providence Day 42-27. I mentioned Trey Horn, a talented young man, had 5 touchdowns for Raven Gap. So I feel like these teams are going to meet again in their private school playoffs, but Raven Gap has home field advantage if they were to meet up again. So if you want to see it, you're going to have to go down to Georgia, and it's about 4 hours from Charlotte, northeast Georgia. So, yeah, we'll see how that bears out. Huff over Harding, big 63-6. High Point Christian defeating Hickory Grove, their first loss on the season, 23-13. Mallard Creek defeating West Mac 33-7. Forest Hills over Parkwood 42-0. South Rowan 32, East Rowan 13. Charlotte Christian over Latin Big 43-0. Monroe Big over Piedmont 59-0. And there's the Marvin Ridge Sun Valley 20-7. We just talked about it with Coach Leggett. This is a big win. Corvian defeating Pine Lake 24-23. You have to call it an upset, but Corvian is very talented for sure. And be interested to see how that game, get some details on that game, how it went. Porter Ridge big over South Mac 49-13. There's Community School over Christ the King 50-0. Talked about Cox Mill over Hickory Ridge 54-21. Lake Norman Charter 7, South Stanley 6. North Mac winning the Battle of the Shield 21-0 over Hopewell. That's a rivalry game. Catholic over East Mac 42-0. Weddington big over Cuthbertson, 62-14. Man, they are rounding in the playoff form, man. We talked about Chambers and West Shaw, of course, 30-14. Myers Park, they're rounding in the playoff form. That's another team we haven't said a lot about, but they are really playing well now. 59-6 over Berry. Providence big over Garinger, 76-12. I got a note that Jackson DB, quarterback for Providence, had 8 touchdown passes in that game. Independence big over Rocky River. Another team rounding in the playoff form, 56-7 over Rocky River. Lake Norman, 24, South Iredale 10. Central Bears getting the win, 30-27 over Carson. Talked about Mooresville over A.L. Brown. Anson, this is the big win for them, 22-14 over West Stanley. Really a big win for Anson County. Ardrey Kill, 34, Olympic 14, as they continue to round up into playoff form. They'll be a dangerous wild card team. Okay, there's Metrolina. Country Day defeating Metrolina 16-13. Asheville School big over South Lake 63-0. There's Clover we talked about over Fort Mill. This was an interesting game. Watauga over Freedom, 54-48. Now, we talked about Watauga. They are high in the 4A West RPI. And we talked about scenarios where, could they, maybe move down depending on their remaining schedule. And this was, again, not expected to be that close. And they have Ashe County, who's pretty good next week in their season finale. So that'll be an RPI game to watch to see, if they lose, that RPI could drop a good bit for them. Another big game last night. Northwestern was big over South Point, 64-31. Man, and Turbo, man, y'all hear me talk about Turbo a lot. He's the running back at Northwestern. He's been to every CFI camp since an 8th grader. He's committed to Boston College. Great running back, great young man. I'm so happy for him. Another stellar performance from him. Indian Land 28, Catawba Ridge 7. North Lincoln, impressive win. That's another team we're going to have to watch. I believe they're 2A. 38-7 over our West Iredale team that's been playing well all year long. Nation Ford big over Spring Valley, 49-0. Game that the Engine went to last night. North Stanley, 33. Mount Pleasant, 16. Good win for them. There's Ashe County. We talked about they beat South Caldwell 13-6. Maiden over Lincoln in a wild one, 37-34. West Rowan, big win for them over Concord, 33-20. And there's Rock Hill, who was big over Blythewood, 41-7, setting up that big matchup with Clover next week. And that's what we got. So we're going to switch over to next week's game. I'm going to show you how many big games there are next week. And you don't want to miss next week's show because we're going to preview as many as time allows. We have a really open format next week on the show. But let's see. Let's get that. There we go. Okay. Before we do that, let's see. We got a couple more comments in here. Coach Tyson says, it's all love, Pep. Appreciate all you do for these young men. Oh, yeah. I knew you guys weren't talking to me because I didn't say nothing. I mean, I know I'm the face of CFI, and I get it because it's our deal. But no, man, we're all good. You know that. I'll see you guys real soon. Let's see, Joe Hughes, Northwestern by 28 over anyone in the Upper State 4A playoff. Wow. And Joe Hughes knows the South Carolina football, but I mean, I agree based on what you saw last night. I mean, how can you not say that? Yeah, that's a good question. Good question. Northwestern, I think Irmo's lower state. Isn't that right, Joe? I think they're lower state, so they would meet in a potential. Well, I don't know. We covered Irmo against Catawba Ridge a couple years ago in the playoffs. I don't know. That's a good question. They're on that Columbia borderline. If Joe sees it, he'll answer that, Coach Hawk. That's a good question, though. Thank you. North Lincoln's 3A. Yeah. Shannon Wingate, running back. Yeah, I'll check him out. Yeah, North Lincoln, man, they're a well coached team, man. They've been that way for a couple years. All right. So next week is a lot of championship games for the conference, and we're gonna go through how all these big games, man. This is incredible. This is the best week of high school football in the regular season that I can remember. Oh my gosh. All right, here we go. Hickory at Statesville. Huge game. You see, it's a 6:30 start. Iredell County has moved to 6:30 starts because of the silliness at football games we talked about a couple weeks ago. Then you got Mooresville Lake Norman. We discussed 6:30. Two huge games right there for seeding and conference championship status, I guess you could say. Porter Ridge and Sun Valley, they used to call this the Battle of the Cookout. I don't know if they still call that. It's the same thing now. But that's a huge Union County game. No conference championship on the line, though, for that one. Rivalry game between Mallard Creek and Chambers happening. Always very intense, very emotional. Let's see here. Harding Westmax, always a rival game. I think both of those schools obviously going to be playing for bragging rights, but hopefully a decent crowd will come out for that one. But I don't know, man. You think back to 2017, both of these teams were in the second round of the state playoffs and could have faced each other if Westmeck beat East Forsyth. So both kind of, trying to build it back, man. Let's see here. This is a very important game for South Meck when they play Myers Park. That's a huge rival game as well. South Meck has to win that game to try to keep any slight playoff chances alive with their RPI ranking. They'd have to go in as a wild card because of the losses that they suffered in conference now. Let's see. Forest Hills Anson can be interesting. Anson just knocked off. Oh gosh, who did they? I just talked about it. But anyway, that's going to be an interesting game for Forest Hills. They can't sleep on Anson County. They're a pretty good team. Weddington Marvin Ridge now has some interest now that Marvin Ridge is back at full strength, presumably. That'll be a good game. That was a really good game last year, twice, because they played the end of the season and then they played again in the playoffs in the first round. Let's see here. Community School Davidson, we talked about at Pine Lake Prep. That's for that conference. Huge game. The Bell game, Concord and A.L. Brown. Honestly, that could be a loser-leave town match also, because the winner, probably has a decent shot of trying to get into the playoffs and get a wild card. And if you lose, you might knock yourself out. They're right there on that borderline. We'll look at RPIs on the show next week before we preview, these games. Independence at Butler, another conference championship game. A huge game between two rival schools. Ashbrook and Huss, that is a traditional rival game. Big-time rivals in Gaston County. We talked about Clover and Rock Hill. Crest, Kings Mountain, of course. That's for that conference. Big, huge game. They'll probably fill up the stadium. There will not be an empty seat there at Kings Mountain for sure. Then York and South Point, that's an important game in South Carolina. Norfolk and Salisbury, that's for that conference title. And for high seeding in the 2A state playoffs. Lincolnton, West Lincoln, another traditional rival game. Burns and Shelby for their conference title as well. So many important games here, man. Oh gosh, and we're going to talk about all of them. North Gaston, South Point. That's an important game right there. That is big for wild card RPI playoff standings. And as Joe Fairbanks says, North Gadsden's looking like a playoff appearance for the first time in 10 years. Man, I really hope so, man. They got really good kids, and Coach Rockwell's a really good guy. Queen City Senior Bowl coach, um, doing a great job with that program. And Joe says he thinks North Gadsden and South Point are both in. Wow, awesome. So that's a seeding game right there for RPI, if that's the case, which is going to be very important too, because you want to get try to get the best matchup possible in the first round. We talked about Ashe County Watauga. That's huge from an RPI seeding standpoint, and I think that might be for their conference too up there. And then Cherryville Bessemer City is important from a 1A seeding standpoint. That's going to be for the number 1A seed out of that conference. And then Scotland Richmond, of course, traditional big game. East Lincoln, North Lincoln will be big. I think that has a chance to be a really great game with the way North Lincoln's playing right now. And then East Lincoln always being a really good football team. So to finish out the show, let's see here. Joe says Ashbrook Husk could be win or go home. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. All right. Well, that's all the comments that have come in. So once again, next week's show we'll do RPI, we'll do Petman's players, and then we're gonna do as many of those big games as the schedule allows. It's playoff time, and we're gonna preview the big games. I'm not gonna worry about rankings at this point because you are where you are. I think we pretty much know where everybody is for the most part. So we'll do a final season rankings when the season ends. But the last thing I want to say here on CFI After Dark, the brunch edition, as Nikisha put it, if you have a 2024 unsigned senior and he doesn't know what he wants to do or doesn't have a lot of offers, please sign him up for our showcase, because I'm telling you, man, both myself and Kenneth are talking to college coaches on a regular basis. They're signing up. We'll put a flyer out probably November 1st or around that time of how many colleges are signing up to come to the showcase and recruit kids. But please have them sign up for this showcase. It is only $79. You're going to get so much value out of it. It comes with a nice long sleeve dry fit shirt that you get for registering, and you can wear that all winter long. We're working with a provider to get some of these I don't know what you call them, arm sleeves for our award winners. They're gonna be really nice. So they want to sponsor the showcase from that standpoint. But if you have a senior or junior, unsigned senior or junior, and they're serious about playing college football, they need to be at this showcase, man. A lot of the time with your recruiting, you just need one offer to kind of kick it off, because schools look and see who's offered who. And if one school offers somebody, that opens it up for so many schools to look at your son and say, okay, he's a pretty good player. We want to offer him too, And then, sometimes if you don't have the offer situation that you want, let's say, for example, not every offer is for a full scholarship. Sometimes you get partial offers, and then it turns into a whole money deal. Let's be real. You don't have, money to, pay for school, all the time. Most of us don't anyway. So then you're kind of bidding against schools and then see which one will give you the best financial offer to attend. So you may have some offers, but they're, partials or they're PWOs, and you want to get your schooling paid for. Come to our showcase, pick up a couple more offers, and then you start a bidding war, and there's a lot of stuff that, people don't know about recruiting. And we try to provide information, we try to provide opportunity. So please, if you have a senior or junior that's serious about playing college football, um, December 2nd at Palisades, make sure you sign them up. You go to our website, charlottefootballinsiders.com. It's only $79 until the end of the month. End of the month, it goes to $99. But it's still the best value around if you want legit college coaches, college head coaches coming to evaluate your son for a potential scholarship. So please share that and sign up as soon as possible, man. But thanks for everybody for watching on the brunch edition. We'll see you on Wednesday night on Football Focus Weekly at 7:30. RPI, Petman's Players, game previews. That's going to be Wednesday's show. So buckle in, get tight. It's playoff time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good weekend.